There is a roofing system, documented, tested, peer-reviewed, that can heat your home in winter, cool it in summer, and deliver hot water every single day, without a furnace, without a utility bill, without a single moving part, and without ever needing a replacement in your lifetime. One installation, zero operating cost, a projected functional lifespan of over 70 years, and in 48 states, building code will not let you use it as your primary system. So here is the question this film exists to answer. If this technology is real, if the physics are sound, if the history is documented, if the engineering is validated, why isn't it on every roof in America? The answer is not simple. It is not a single decision made by a single villain in a single boardroom. It is something more complicated and in many ways more troubling. It is the accumulated weight of systems that were never designed with your energy independence in mind. Certification bodies, insurance underwriters, appraisal standards, utility interconnection agreements, building codes written in an era when the only acceptable answer was a meter on your wall. We are going to walk through all of it, but first, we need to go back, much further back than you might expect. Welcome to Frontier Trapper. Before we open this archive, understand what is at stake here. Not as abstraction, but as a practical daily reality. The average American household spends between $2,000 and $30,500 per year on heating and cooling alone. That number has risen every decade since centralized energy systems became the legal default. What we are about to examine is a methodology that predates that default, that existed before it, survived despite it, and continues to work in the places where it has been allowed to work. This is not fringe science. This is suppressed infrastructure. 2,000 years ago, Roman architects were already solving this problem. In the 1st and 2nd centuries A.D., wealthy Roman households built what they called the heliocaminus, literally the sun furnace. These were south-facing rooms with large glazed openings oriented to capture winter solar gain. The Baths of Caracalla, one of the most sophisticated public buildings ever constructed in the ancient world, used passive solar orientation combined with hypocaust floor heating to maintain interior temperatures that would be, by modern standards, extraordinarily energy efficient. Roman building law eventually mandated solar access rights. A neighbor could not legally construct a building that blocked your sun. They understood physics. They codified it. And then, with the fall of Rome, it was forgotten for nearly 1,000 years. But here's what changed when it was rediscovered. On the Colorado Plateau, the ancestral Puebloan people, the Anasazi, built multi-story cliff dwellings that modern building scientists have now studied in remarkable detail. These structures were positioned with extraordinary precision. Primary living spaces faced south-southeast. Overhangs were angled to block the high summer sun while admitting the low winter sun, and thermal mass, the sheer density of the stone walls, absorbed daytime heat and radiated it back through the night. No furnace, no fuel, no moving parts, comfortable interior temperatures maintained across desert temperature swings that can exceed 50 degrees Fahrenheit in a single day. Researchers from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory have studied these sites and confirmed what the original builders intuited. The passive solar and thermal mass design is not incidental. It is deliberate, refined over generations, and reproducible. The catch is, none of this appears in the standard American building curriculum. It never became code, and the reasons for that begin to emerge. In 1940, an architect named George Fred Keck built a house in Glenview, Illinois, a house he called the Slum Clearance House in his private notes, because he believed it would make energy poverty obsolete. It had floor-to-ceiling south-facing glass, concrete floors for thermal mass, and a roof overhang calculated to the precise solar angle of the Chicago latitude. His clients reported heating bills that were 60 to 70% lower than comparable homes. Life magazine covered it. The Chicago Tribune called it the House of the Future. And then, almost nothing. The post-war building boom arrived. Cheap natural gas infrastructure was federally subsidized, and the entire framework of passive solar design quietly disappeared from mainstream construction. Not banned, not forbidden, simply unbuilt, unfinanced, uninsured at favorable rates. and unlisted in the model building codes that every jurisdiction in America would eventually adopt. That mechanism, the quiet, systemic disappearance of a proven technology, is the story we are really here to tell. But before we get there, we need to understand exactly how this roof system works, because once you understand the physics, you will understand why its suppression is so extraordinary. The system we are examining is what building scientists now categorize under the broad term passive solar thermal roofing, and, in its most developed form, it integrates three distinct physical phenomena into a single building envelope. Let's take them one at a time. Phenomenon number 1. Solar thermal mass. Every material on Earth absorbs heat and releases it at a different rate. This property is called thermal mass, and it is the foundation of everything we are about to discuss. A standard asphalt shingle roof does something almost criminally wasteful. It absorbs solar energy all day, reaching surface temperatures between 150 and 190 degrees Fahrenheit on a hot summer afternoon, and then radiates most of that heat directly into the attic space and into the atmosphere. You are paying to cool a house that your own roof is actively trying to bake. Now, what if that heat was captured instead? Dense, dark thermal mass materials, stone, water, phase change composites can absorb that solar energy during peak hours and release it slowly over 8 to 14 hours during the night when you need it most. That is the core exchange: sunlight in, stored heat out, zero fuel consumed. Phenomenon number 2. The thermosiphon loop. Water, or a glycol solution in cold climates, moves through physics alone. When you heat a fluid, it becomes less dense and rises. When it cools, it becomes denser and sinks. This creates a natural circulation loop, no pump required, called a thermosiphon. In a roof-integrated collector, fluid channels run beneath a glazed or selective surface panel. The sun heats the fluid. The heated fluid rises into an insulated storage tank positioned higher than the collector. Cool fluid descends back to the collector. The loop runs continuously, silently, without any mechanical intervention for as long as the sun is shining. How long can a well-built thermosiphon system last? The part nobody mentions in the sales literature for conventional HVACs: documented thermosiphon systems in Israel, Australia, and Japan have been operating continuously for between 30 and 50 years, with nothing more than occasional glycol replacement and gasket inspection. 50 years. No moving parts, no service contracts. Phenomenon number 3. Radiative cooling. Now here's the inversion, and this is the mechanism that most people have never heard of, even within the building science community. At night, every surface on Earth radiates heat upward into the sky. The sky, in clear conditions, is radiatively cold, sometimes as low as -40 degrees Celsius in the upper atmosphere. Under the right conditions, a surface facing the open sky will actually cool below ambient air temperature even on a warm night through a process called radiative sky cooling. Wait, let that settle. A surface on your roof, exposed to the open sky, can become colder than the air around it. Without refrigerant, without compressors, without electricity. This is not speculative. It is used commercially in some parts of the world to chill water for air conditioning passively. A 2017 study published in Nature by researchers at Stanford University demonstrated a photonic radiative cooling panel that produced 40 to 60 watts of cooling power per square meter net below ambient in daylight with zero energy input. So let us now be very clear about what we are describing. In total, a roof system that heats your space in winter, delivers hot water year-round, and provides passive cooling in summer through 3 integrated physical phenomena, with no fuel cost, no moving parts, and a validated lifespan measured in decades. Why is this not the standard? Why do we not build every home this way? To answer that, we need to look at where it is being built. Israel today has the highest per capita installation of solar water heating systems in the world. Over 90% of Israeli households heat their domestic water this way. This is not accidental. It is the result of a 1980 law passed in the wake of the oil crisis, mandating solar water heating in all new residential construction. The result? Israeli households spend, on average, between 3 and 5% of their income on total energy costs, compared to 8 to 10% in comparable OECD nations without the mandate. The technology works. The economics work. The law made it happen. In Europe, the passive house standard, developed in Germany in the late 1980s, has been applied to over 60,000 buildings across dozens of climates and building types. Buildings certified to this standard use between 70 and 90% less energy for heating and cooling than conventional construction of the same size. The standard is entirely code compatible in Europe. In the United States, it occupies a gray zone, recognized by some jurisdictions, ignored by others, incompatible with several standard financing instruments because it does not fit neatly into conventional appraisal methodologies. The technology is not experimental. The barrier is not physics. The barrier is paperwork. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, and Oak Ridge National Laboratory have all produced peer-reviewed research validating passive solar thermal systems, thermal mass design, and radiative cooling as technically sound, economically viable, and climate-appropriate across a range of U.S. climate zones. The research exists. It is publicly funded. It sits in open access journals. And yet, here is the part that demands examination. The Model International Energy Conservation Code, which serves as the baseline for building codes across most of the United States, still primarily evaluates building energy performance through metrics that were developed around centralized mechanical systems. A building designed to need less energy is evaluated by systems designed to measure how efficiently it consumes energy. Is it any wonder that passive systems, systems that consume almost nothing, are difficult to certify, difficult to finance, and difficult to insure? Let us be precise about what we mean when we say a technology disappears. It does not disappear because it doesn't work. It disappears because the systems built around energy consumption were never designed to accommodate energy independence. And those systems, over decades, became structural, embedded in codes, in financing, in insurance actuarial tables, in ways that create enormous friction for anything that sits outside them. This is not a conspiracy. It is the compounding logic of institutional incentives. But the outcome, for the homeowner trying to build outside that logic, is functionally identical. Model building codes in the United States are developed through a consensus process that includes, among others, representatives from the mechanical contracting industry, the fossil fuel equipment manufacturing industry, and the utility sector. Passive systems, systems with no equipment to sell, no service contract to maintain, no meter to read, generate no stakeholder urgency to codify. The result, passive solar thermal roofing has no standardized code pathway in most U.S. jurisdictions. A building inspector cannot approve what they have no checkbox to verify. Homeowners' insurance is priced on replacement cost models. Radiative cooling panels, thermosiphon arrays, and integrated thermal mass systems have no standard replacement cost schedule in most actuarial databases. So, insurers do one of two things. They exclude the system from coverage, or they load the premium to account for uncertainty. Either way, the economics are distorted away from adoption. Appraisers face a parallel problem. A house with no utility bills and a 50-year passive heating system adds value that no comparable sale can document because there are almost no comparable sales, so the value is not recognized, so the mortgage is not written for it, so it is not built. Here is the bluntest statement in this entire film. A utility company's revenue is directly proportional to the energy you consume. A home that consumes 70 or 80% less energy is, from a utility economic standpoint, a problem, not a solution. This is not malevolent, it is math. But when utility companies sit on rate-setting boards, when they participate in code development processes, when they structure interconnection agreements that favor grid dependence, the math of their economics becomes the architecture of your options. The antagonist in this story is not a person. It is a system that was built to deliver energy to you and that has every structural incentive to keep delivering it forever, at a price you have no alternative to pay, unless you build differently. So what do you actually do with this? The answer is not to fight the system. The answer is to navigate it intelligently within the law, starting small with full documentation, so that what you build can be verified, permitted, insured, and eventually scaled. Here is the framework. Start with math. Before any tool is purchased or any contractor is called, calculate your current annual energy expenditure. Then calculate your roof's solar access. There are free tools available through NREL's PVW Watts calculator that will give you annual solar irradiance data for your exact address. Understand what you are working with before you commit to a design. Check your local code and water rights simultaneously. In many states, the same code bodies that restrict passive solar thermal systems have specific sections, often buried, that allow alternative compliance pathways or performance-based approval. An energy consultant or architect familiar with your state's residential energy code can often find a legal route that a general contractor would never know to look for. In states where rainwater harvesting or graywater systems are also restricted, and several overlap with the passive thermal restrictions, the same research process applies. Know the specific code section, not the general reputation. A single thermosiphon solar water heater, a system that heats domestic hot water only, is legal in all 50 states, qualifies for federal tax credits as of the current code cycle, and can be installed for between $1,500 and $4,000 depending on your climate and household size. This is not the full system, but it is a legal, permitted, documented proof of concept on your own property, one that generates real performance data, real utility bill reduction, and a paper trail of verified operation that becomes invaluable if you later want to make the case for full system expansion to a building department or an insurance underwriter. Scale only after validation. Once the pilot is documented, one full seasonal cycle monitored, you have evidence. Evidence that an inspector can review. Evidence that an insurer can price. Evidence that an appraiser can price. The path from fringe to permitted runs directly through documented performance, not through argument. Is it slower than it should be? Yes. Is it more complicated than it should be? Yes. But the physics do not care about the paperwork. The sun still rises, the sky is still cold at night. The thermosiphon still runs without a pump. The knowledge still works, even when the system does its best to make you forget it. Every generation inherits the infrastructure of the one before it. The question is whether that inheritance is something that serves you or something that extracts from you. The roof over your head can be passive, permanent, and free, or it can be metered, managed, and monetized by systems that profit from your dependence. That choice still exists. The knowledge still exists. And the only thing keeping it from becoming widespread is the number of people who know it well enough to demand it. If this record deserves to stay open, share it. Subscribe to keep this archive accessible. Because knowledge that disappears once can disappear again.